All right. I think we are live. So let's go ahead and get this thing started. Well, what is up, everybody? Thanks for joining me today. I'm Andy. You're watching Andy Parish Outdoors. And first and foremost, happy holidays to you and your loved ones. Hopefully you have a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Obviously, I'm in a festive mood here. We are on final countdown. It is Christmas Eve. And this will be the last podcast, obviously, before Christmas, but it may even be the last one before the end of the year. But I just wanted to kind of recap and touch base on a couple topics going forward tonight. So thanks so much again for joining us. As many of you may know, just from some of the videos and some of the other podcasts and whatnot, I kind of had my end-of-year plans thrown out the window because of an injury. I tore my meniscus it's probably about 6 weeks ago now. So had surgery the first week of December and have been in complete mend and recovery mode since then. So it has been frustrating at times to see all these videos and everything of people out there doing their fun stuff, and I've got a ways to go before I can get to that point, but I'm making progress. And other than a little setback a day or two ago where I overdid it a little bit, I'm feeling pretty good. So hopefully within the next month, maybe 3 weeks, I'll be able to do a lot more, maybe even get back on a small little trail close to home or something like that. So I'm definitely chomping at the bit to get out there and do some fun stuff. I definitely miss it. But that also kind of makes us all appreciate a little bit more just, the things that we love. When those things are taken away for a period of time, you really notice just how much that means to you. So I know that's definitely the case for me too. Just miss being out there. So really looking forward to being able to do those things. So I'm a little mobile, but I'm not very mobile. I'm not even supposed to be doing, long walks on the beach or anything like that, let alone on the trail or with a backpack or whatever. So that also got me thinking a little bit about, all the rehab that I'm doing and the exercises and the strength building and the icing and everything to get back to full go. To make me look forward a little bit into 2021. So today I'm just going to spend a little bit of time. It'll probably be a shorter podcast. And then maybe if there's any questions and answers at the end, I'll be happy to touch base on those. But looking forward to 2021, it got me thinking about, wanting to be back on trail, wanting to get back to be able to doing those things that I love, in the fall. Do I have any, pseudo New Year's resolutions or goals for 2021? And, I've had a few different injuries the last couple years. If you go back to 2018, I had a pretty serious back injury that I had to have surgery for and get, fusion done. So having that to battle back from and then do hiking later that summer of 2019, and then have this explosion of activity in 2020, set back at the end of the year by another injury. It really got me thinking that one of the goals that I really want to have for this coming year is going to deal with my own physical fitness. We spend so much time on some of these videos talking about getting your gear right. Can you go lighter weight? Can you go ultra light? How do you scale down from all those extra items that we all start with kind of at the beginning? We pack our fears and bring extra stuff. How do you kind of condense that down over time. And as you build experience, I think that's what a lot of us do, is we look at, hey, I started with a 35-pound pack or something like that. Can I get to 30? Can I figure out that a lot of the stuff I'm not even using? Can I get down to 25 pounds? Can I get to 20-pound base weight? Can I keep pushing myself to get lighter and lighter? And I think one of the things that a lot of times we overlook is, if we really want to be carrying less weight, we kind of got to look at ourselves too. So one thing with this injury is I've been, immobile for 6 weeks now, going on 12 weeks, by the time I'm ready to get back into this. So, my physical activity's dropped quite a bit, and you can't get, the exercise, the output that I was doing previously. So, you're more sedentary, you're sitting on the couch, pounds start to add on. So that's definitely one thing that I've noticed, is just in that 6 weeks period, holy cow, I'm still probably eating the same, but I'm not moving nearly as much as I was, and I'm gaining weight just doing that. So being a little bit more mindful about not only what I'm eating, but it really puts the focus of, gosh, I've really got to do well on this rehab, get back to being active, and then really put the focus on going forward, being in better physical shape. If I can cut my pack weight by 15 pounds, can I cut my own weight by 10 pounds, by 15 pounds, something like that. So, Merry Christmas to everybody out there. Thanks so much for the well wishes and the hellos. I see that coming through. So I'd love to ask you guys that are following along, what are your goals? What are your wishes? What are your New Year's resolutions? Do you have any when it comes specifically to backpacking? Maybe it's trips. I know Brent and I talked a little bit about this in our last podcast, some ideas that we have for 2021. Early in the spring, we want to go down and do Smoky Mountain National Park and do a section of trail. So we're starting to kind of figure out what do we want to do? How far do we want to go? How many days, that sort of thing. So, we're looking at March and April. So, if I've got rehab that's going to take me into January, that gives me another month or two after that to then really hammer at getting in better physical shape so that I can handle the vertical gains that we're definitely going to see going through, sections of the park. It can be a challenge. So, stop. Toast to everybody out there. I don't know what you're drinking. Hopefully it's good. For me tonight, it's just a little Yingling. It was Woodford last time, so we'll try and have something different and fun every time I do this. I know Brent's a fan of that as well. So, but back to other trips that we're looking at doing. We're looking at something out west. We talked about doing maybe the Winds in Wyoming. We've talked about doing a couple other sections, possibly farther north, whether it's Glacier, Sawtooth, Teton Crest Trail, I know is up there for us. And then we're also looking at the Cascades. And there's so many. I mean, when you go look at monster trips, epic trips out west, it's like, here's a list of 100 different options. Pick your choice. They're all going to be amazing. So we're looking forward to that. Better physical shape, some big monster trips. I feel like gear wise, there's not a whole lot right now. I feel like I'm pretty well comfortable. I'm dialed in on that. I spent a lot of 2019 and 2020, I think, really getting that figured out. Probably mostly 2019. 2020, I think a lot of that stuff, it was more about just putting that stuff through its paces and getting more comfortable, more proficient, setting up, tearing down, all of that stuff. But from the beginning of the year to the end of the year, I don't think my gear changed a whole lot. 2019, it was like drastically different from January to December. I barely recognize any of the stuff. I don't know if you guys are doing the same kind of thing. I think it's pretty typical that everybody goes through, as they gain an experience and understanding, then their goals start to change and morph a little bit, and they get into, just evolving their gear stuff too. So, ginger ale bold. I've never had that. Is that good? I've been more traditional, I guess, but maybe that's something I've got to add to my list as drinks to try out. Zion, yeah, Zion's. We looked at doing that a little bit. We talked about that kind of area, and there's so much up there too. When we were looking at Colorado this past fall, so that's definitely on the list, and that was one of kind of the backup spots, because we just didn't know with COVID being so spotty. There were some spots where things would just flare up, and we had to kind of plan 2 or 3 different trips just in case one got shelved completely. So I think Zion would be an amazing place. A section hike of the AT. Well, that's kind of what we're hoping to do down when we go to Smoky Mountain National Park. So one of my goals for that trip, and I'm kind of taking the early planning on it with Brent, is just looking at, I want to do a section of that trail, and I don't know how many miles. We looked at doing from Fontana Dam all the way up to and past Klingman's Dome, and just do the AT, just that section as being the whole trip. And then you can stay in shelters along the way. And I forget how many miles that was. It was a pretty decent stretch, 40, 50 miles, something like that, that we can do over multiple days, multiple nights. But it would be, AT exclusive. And then we've also looked at other loops up near Cosby, which I believe is in kind of the northeastern section of the park, and doing a couple loops up there that would come in contact with the AT. Because for us, or at least for me, there's so many different areas in the park. I want to have at least one section where we overlap the AT. We were looking at one loop in particular, and Brent was throwing out that maybe, we move from this shelter and we hike further to a different section, but that would take us off the AT and not give us at least one overnight on trail. So I think I'm going to push back a little bit on that and say, I really want to be on the AT at least for one of the overnights. And if we go, we're looking maybe 3 nights, 4 nights, something like that, depending on which loop we go. You got to work in at least one, at least in my mind. I've never, I'm trying to think if I've ever done even a section of the AT. I don't believe I've even stepped foot on it yet. So that's got to be huge on my bucket list to go and, do a section of that. I know he was looking last year. Brent was Virginia doing a loop there, a section of trail. So that got shelved just because of all the COVID stuff. So I'm sure we'll look at getting back. We've talked at doing other areas, non-AT stuff. We've talked about going back to Red River Gorge, which I love that area and have had limited experience there. So I'd love to get back to the gorge. Going back there or going down there last winter, February, just seeing like a snippet of what was available. I was blown away. I just, hiking in Indiana, you kind of get a feel for the layout. It's nice to go down and do like the AHT in southern Indiana along the river, where you get a little bit of topography changes. But doing the Tecumseh and doing Low Gap and doing the Charles Deem, you get a similar vibe. Even going in northern Indiana was a little different, doing the Blood Route. But it's not drastically different. You go down to like Red River Gorge and all of a sudden things change a lot. So I'd like to go back down that way. There's some spots in Ohio that we're looking at, and we're looking out, maybe towards Western PA, West Virginia, Dolly Sod, something like that. I'd like to get down to, the Cumberland Gap area, kind of northern Tennessee, southern Kentucky. I hear a lot of good things about down that way. Big South Fork is not far from there too. And then we're looking at, Pictured Rocks at some point too. And Southern Illinois, Garden of the Gods, things that are a stone's throw away from us. Garden of the Gods is a little further. Pictured Rocks is definitely further, but, Red River Gorge is not that far. Southern Ohio, there's a few things that are not that far. So we'd love to hit some of those as kind of the offshoot stuff, the in-between epic trips of whether it's Smoky Mountains and then maybe doing somewhere out west. There'd be a possibility for maybe at least 2 or 3 other kind of smaller trips, weekend kind of things where we can just disappear for, 2 or 3 days and 1 or 2 overnights, kind of deal. So let's see. I'm gravitating towards car camping and then day hiking 10 to 20 miles. It's very different, but a new sort of fun for me, and my family has been going with me, which makes it even better. I do like, I've done some trips. I did a New Mexico trip with my oldest son, and that was back in the summer of 2019, and we went out to Philmont and I think it was about 86 miles, 12 days. But we did it as a big group. So it was him and I, and then the rest of our crew. So it was a fairly decent sized group. And that can be a lot of fun, just the camaraderie, the joking, the memories, the team building kind of stuff that goes into it. And it was a very, very different experience than even doing a 2-person backpacking trip where, you still get a little bit of the camaraderie and whatnot, but the dynamic's completely different. And then doing the solo trips too is a nice variety too, just because you're kind of alone in your own thoughts. There's not really somebody to bounce things off of. So you get into, kind of a different headspace. And then if you're going like Red River Gorge for me last year was, it's not a very active time of year. There's not a lot of people. You're in bear country, but in February there's very little activity that's taking place, but it's still on your mind a little bit. So being out there solo, there's nobody around. For sections of that trip, I didn't see anybody for hours and hours and hours and hours. So it's a very different experience when you're navigating on trail, you're doing stream crossings, you're doing all these different things, and you're thinking about, being safe. The last thing you want to do is have a slip and a fall or an injury, and there's nobody around. It's one of the reasons that I bring, whether it's my cell phone or like the Garmin InReach Mini, just to be able to communicate if there was something to happen to me. But people would be able to find me at least. But the dynamics are different in each of those environments, and I really like all of them. So it's one of those things that for 2021, I'd love to do, whether it's a group get-together outing or section hike, whether it's the Knobstone or the Tecumseh Trail or something else that maybe we get a group of us together and go do. And then I'm sure I'll do a few like Brent and I are planning, kind of 2-person trips for that dynamic. And then I'd still like to plan at least 1, if not 2 kind of solo hikes, just because again, I like the different vibe. I like the challenge that brings. It's just something fun. It kind of keeps you on your toes. Kind of like one of the things that we did last year. We threw out a challenge for the adventure hiking trail where it had to be a ultralight setup. So neither one of us had done that before. So trying to get under a 10-pound base weight in the mid to late June when it was like 85 degrees and we knew we were going to be hauling, a gallon of water at a time between water stops. How do you go to an ultralight setup and do a sub 10 pound, loadout? So for us, it was just another, fun challenge to do. We'll probably do something like that. Brent was talking about maybe doing a cowboy camping kind of setup, or, just a tarp and ground sheet kind of thing where we're not bringing a tent, we're not bringing a hammock, that it's going to be kind of lean and mean, again, just a different kind of challenging thing to do. That can make it fun, new, and give you a little bit of excitement going into that specific trip. Like the AHT one, I don't know that ultralight hiking is for me, because we talked about it in the last video. It's kind of a mentality. You have to be comfortable, excited even about being a minimalist. We bring chairs. Every time I bring a chair, because comfort for me is important. So trying to do an ultralight where I'm giving up a pound just to bring my chair, I probably would get scoffed at by the ultralighters. That's probably why I'll never be an ultralighter. It's a mentality, and it's fun. I enjoy doing that as kind of a one-off thing, but I would not want to do that, I think, full term, full go, where that's my go-to setup. And again, that goes back to balancing comfort on trail versus comfort in camp. I can hike some decent distances. For me, 10 to 15 miles a day is plenty. And I know some people will crush, 20 plus miles, 30 miles a day, and are looking to, cover huge distances. So being ultralight or being even super light is something that makes a lot of sense for them. For me, I'm going to hike for 5 or 6 hours, maybe something like that, maybe a little bit longer on some trips, and some days be shorter. When we went out to Colorado, we did 5.5 miles. I think it was the first day or something like that, 6 miles. And then you're setting up camp. So we knew, even if you started at noon, you're going to be done well before the sun goes down. So you can carry a little bit more, you're going to have more time in camp. And you're going to enjoy those, non-essentials that you bring, whether it's a chair or whatever. And everybody has their own stuff. I don't know what everybody else loves to bring, but for me, I'm always bringing a chair. What's your one item that's your luxury that you're always bringing with you, regardless? I'd be curious to see what everybody else's luxury item list looks like. And some people have multiple luxury items. I bet if I went through my list right now, and I'm curious, I may just pull that up just to take a look. If I just look at my gear list here, camera stuff, I'd bring all that, on the AHT too, trying to figure out how to bring tripods, cameras, spare batteries, whatever it was. That stuff adds up fast. And I think that part of my list is only growing as I'm trying to get, better content, better visuals, give everybody a better feel for what the trail experience is actually like for us. I want that quality, that production quality to increase. So there's probably going to be more of that stuff. I'm never a cold soaker. Does anybody out there do that? For food, do they leave the stove behind? I've never done that. I've cooked over the fire, and I've done the stove. The Pocket Rocket 2 or the BRS 3000 deal, but cold soaking, it's never been a thing that even sounds good. I want a hot cup of coffee in the morning. Okay, there's another one, coffee. That may not be a luxury item. Maybe for an ultralighter it would be, but I'm bringing a cup and coffee every day for every trip that I take. I don't care, that's part of the enjoyment that I want to have. I'm trying to look through my list here if there's anything else that really jumps out. Well, some of these trips I'll bring whether it's a saw, whether it's a fixed blade knife, just to help with wood. Like if I'm building a fire or doing something like that, there's times that I'll bring something like that. It's not every time. I'm bringing my Garmin. I bring that now about every time, and some of that's my own peace of mind. And I found it's more my peace of mind than my wife. I think she's likes to know that everything's fine, but on the last, I think 2 or 3 trips, she's like, enough with the text messages. I get it. You're breaking camp and everything's great and whatever. And I was just like, oh, I texted you last night. I thought I'd text you in the morning. She's like, no, I'm good. You don't need to send me 5 text messages in a day, when you're out on trail. And I thought, all right, I can do maybe 1 when I get into camp, and that's plenty. And for her, that's all she needed to know was everything's good. But I'm still bringing it in case something happens. I've just found it to be an amazingly useful tool, especially in case something goes wrong. Silky Gomboys, I've brought those before, little, pocket saws. Those are under 10 ounces. So there's a little bit of weight to them. I don't bring those every time. Gosh, some people even talk about like a trowel as being too much. I don't know if that's, what are you going to dig with your hands? Some people talk about using their trekking poles. I'll bring a trowel. It's not that much. So Tribe Outside, you were asking about where am I located? I'm north side of Indianapolis. So, my stomping grounds for getting out on trail, my backyard is typically, going down to Morgan Monroe State Forest and doing something like the Low Gap or Tecumseh area. I do a lot down Charles Dean Wilderness, down that way. Love spending time going through the Hoosier National Forest. And I've gone further south. Those are typically not, kind of spur of the moment trips, but I'll go down and do, southern section of Hoosier National Forest too, Two Lakes Trail. We're talking about going down and doing, near Louisville, doing the Knobstone Trail. I don't know when we're going to do it. Sometime in 2021 for sure. But that was supposed to be what we did this fall before I got hurt. So when I hurt my knee, that got shelved. Unfortunately, we had pushed it from, I want to say October into like the first week of December. And just because October gets so busy with kids and activities and fall sports and you name it, that it's hard to squeeze some of this stuff in. So I had to kind of, call for a redo and say, let's do December. And then sure enough, I'm the one that gets hurt, before Thanksgiving and has to have surgery that week. So, Knobstone will go sometime, mid-year. I'd love to do it, before it gets really hot. Even if we can get the spring, rainy season kind of time, cause I know water is always a challenge on that. I think ultimately we were talking about doing it, December or October. So if we can get it, let's see, if we're doing March, if we go down and do Great Smoky Mountain National Park, maybe April, if we can pull that off with scheduling. Otherwise, it may get pushed either midsummer, which we don't ideally want to do. But if we're looking at going out west towards the end of the summer, which makes a lot of sense, then maybe Knobstone gets middle of summer, or maybe we end up doing it again back in November, December again, after the leaves have come down. I just like to do that when the views are a little bit better. Kind of that's the one thing we took away from the AHT in southern Indiana, down along the Ohio River, was just your views weren't great if you were there during the middle of summer, because just the tree canopy was so thick and everything was so overgrown. You couldn't see the Ohio River at times when you knew it was there, hardly at all. So, and when you try to take pictures of it, it doesn't show up at all. So, car camping. I haven't done a ton of car camping in Hoosier National Forest specifically. I've done a lot of that. We typically do that as a family, going down and doing a lot of the state parks. So we love doing, whether it's Brown County State Park. We've done some out towards like Terre Haute. We've done Shakamak. We've done Lieber. And then we've day hiked as a family, different places. But we love doing the car camping. I love doing that's what I did for probably 10 plus years. Once we started having a family and looking at things to do as a family, that was one thing that I really liked doing as a kid with my family growing up. So we started kind of incorporating that. Started with a family tent, and then it grew to like multiple tents, and then it grew to like the huge Coleman, like 12-person one. And then even got to the point where we bought a used pop-up camper, for the last, 3-4 years, something like that. It's been great. And we love it. I love it. I know my wife loves it. We look forward to doing those kind of trips. And now we've kind of started branching out and going further. So we've taken the pop-up to like Destin, Florida, and camped on the beach, which is really kind of cool. We did South Carolina, where there's a ton of like RV parks and whatnot down along like Myrtle Beach. So that's been a lot of fun doing that kind of thing. And then I think doing that, it really started to pique my interest to do something different, do a solo trip. So we had done the family camping for close to 10 years. And I thought, well, let me sneak away one weekend and do a single overnight solo trip. And it was Morgan Monroe State Forest outside. I kind of pulled off from Martinsville and jumped in that section of the woods, and then parked. I think that time was in the backcountry parking lot, low gap road, and then hiked up the ridge and just camped. I think it was like a 3/4 of a mile or something up the trail. So that was kind of my first foray into backpacking, which I had a backpack, but I would not call myself a backpacker at that point in time. I really didn't even know much about what it was. I was just solo camping. It was kind of like car camping, but 300 yards away from your car, so it was far enough that you had to carry everything. So you didn't bring, everything that I brought to like Brown County. And there were people that were right off the lot, but I wanted something that was a little further away. And then I realized this sucks carrying all this stuff, up the ridge. And I think I did it all in one trip. That first time, I think I did. It's like 5 or 6 years ago at least. I didn't love doing that. So it was like, I don't want to bring all this stuff, or I got to find something that's smaller, more compact, or I got to fit. It didn't fit in my backpack. So I had literally like carrying stuff up the sides of the hill, getting up to the ridge. So that kind of got me thinking about, okay, backpacking, what is this? Do I really want to do it? I didn't even care about distance. I was not looking at that. It was really just, I want to get from my car to a campsite that's a reasonable distance. And then I did that probably 2 or 3 times, about that same distance, less than 1.5 miles. And then realized, well, there's a whole trail network here. I think that'd be pretty cool. I saw a bunch of other people doing the loop and thought, maybe that's what I want to get into. And I started researching it, and now it's become, a huge hobby / obsession that I love doing. So, let's see. Tanya, you cold soak lunch. Okay. Refried beans and pasta salad. It's yummy. I've never cold soaked. I've seen enough on it. I've never, it doesn't sound appetizing. Now, maybe it is, but, I'll usually do like no cook. So, it's kind of similar, but it's just, I've done like the tortillas and you're spreading something on it, Probably my least favorite is when we did like peanut butter and granola. We did peanut butter and granola and tortillas for lunch like 3 days in a row when we went up to Minnesota, and not a fan. Like, I did it the first day and I'm like, all right, this is okay. And then by the third day, I'm like, I'm not touching the peanut butter. I don't want any. I'm I'm going to eat something else. I've got a power bar in here or something. So if I have something for lunch, I don't typically like to cook for it. So cold soaking makes a ton of sense. It really does. I guess if I found the right recipe or something that I really liked, I'm not opposed to trying it. Maybe I'll do that as part of a challenge this year is, on one trip, all the lunches I do will have to be cold soaked, just to try it. Yep. See, I saw your challenge just come up, Tanya. So I may do that. Cold soak the entire lunch menu. I'd have to look up stuff because I've got nothing. I got no list that I think would make anything even partially appetizing. Now, I will say, as far as lunches go, what I came across this past year, I really liked was Packet Gourmet. I don't know how many of you guys have had that, but I do like some of the Packet Gourmet no-cook lunch options. So they do have some of those where you can literally just, either rehydrate it. It's kind of like cold soaking, I guess, where you're just adding, would you call that cold soaking? You're just adding cold water into their, freeze-dried, dehydrated meals. And then, it makes like bean and cheese burrito. So you just rehydrate that and then you spread it on your tortilla. So I have had that. So maybe technically that counts. Those are good. Now, when I went backpacking with Brent to Colorado, he had some aversion to eating lunch at all. We'd go till 2:00 in the afternoon, and I'm like, dude, are we gonna stop and eat? We've been hiking for I don't know how many hours, and I'm kind of getting tired of the the trail mix or the chews or the I usually have M&Ms and Mike and Ike's are like my go-to, like if I just want a quick jolt of something sugary, and then I'll have like a granola bar or Zone bars I've had sometimes. They're fine. What's one I'm thinking of? I wish I could, wish I had my food list in front of me. Let me see if I can pull that up. I forget what, Kind bars. That's what I'm thinking of. Kind bars are there's a couple of those varieties that I find tolerable. So if I'm on trail and I'm just, my goal is to keep hiking and I just want to eat something as I go, peanut M&Ms, a little bit of trail mix. I'm not a huge fan of that kind of thing, but I like the granola bars, even if it's just like a Quaker granola bar, something that you can eat and keep going. But if I can get Brent to stop, or maybe on my solo trips, I'm going to do cold soak only. Let me write that down. Challenges. Has anybody done any other challenges? Like, do they do these things? Is this just me? Am I the only one that does this kind of thing? Have you ever done a trip where you throw in a challenge just to keep it interesting? So, challenges, cold soak. That will be one of my 2021. We did ultralight, so we did that one last year. We'll do cold soak. I'll do cold soak if I can convince Brent. I don't know if he has any interest in doing that, or I'll just do that on one of my solo trips. Cold soaking. Yeah, I get sick if I don't eat lunch. Well, and I'm the same way. I had to stop Brent in Colorado on day one and say, we got to eat. And we literally stopped and got the chairs out, and like I cooked something, I think, at that point in time, because we were only like an hour and a half from where we planned to stop for camp. So at that point, it's like, if I don't eat, I don't want to get into camp and then I haven't had a meal and then all I have is dinner. But the other days that we skipped lunch, I would eat part of it, or I would eat, like, my snacks became lunch and ended up carrying it. And part of that is I pack too much food. I still do that. That's probably my biggest weakness right now, is my gear has been dialed down and I feel really good about where that is. My base weight on trips are typically 12 pounds, maybe 14 pounds for some of the bigger trips, depending on where we're going and what the environment's going to be like. So 12 to 14 pound base weight. But food, like, I probably packed 4 days, 3 nights for Colorado. And mine was, I scaled it down to like 5 pounds of food. And I know the goal, a lot of people guidelines that, I don't know if you guys use the same ones, 1 pound a day to 1.5 pounds is kind of what I've seen online that a lot of people post as a guideline. So I was at the higher, I wasn't at the low end of that, because you got to think we're getting there half day at the beginning and we should be off trail before dinner. So we didn't plan on eating breakfast or dinner, breakfast the first day or dinner the last day. So I probably should have been at about 4 pounds at max. Probably a little under that would have been perfect for me. I had too much. So we skipped these lunches, but I was eating my snacks. So I had plenty of food. I just got to the end of the trail and I had like lunch, second day, third day, fourth day, and I didn't eat. And I ate my snacks in place of those lunch, and that was plenty. So that's what I should have brought, and I should have left those lunches at home. So that way we could eat on trail. We'd stop for 5 minutes for just a break and eat and then go. That made a lot of sense. So I don't know. Maybe I'll get better at that in 2021 of just managing food better. I've never run out of food. I've never run out of food, and I don't think I've ever gotten close. And I will usually bring, my default is I'll bring, like, whether it's snacks or it's a meal, I will bring a little bit of an extra than is planned, is my goal. And I end up bringing, I got off trail in Colorado and we had like 3 meals or something like that was left, or 4 probably, because I bet I had one as a backup. So having 3 that I didn't touch and a 4th as a backup, I got off trail with like a little over a pound of food that I carried the entire loop. So I got to get better at that. So that's all right. New Year's resolution, there's one of them. It's getting in shape a little bit more, losing a few pounds there. And then, hey, it'll help me lose some pounds too, is bring less food. So hike more, eat less, win-win. So pack lighter food. Not lighter food, less. Pack less food. Packing lighter food's good too. I definitely improved on that this year. Getting the food dehydrator. I like doing that. Do you guys like doing that too? Making your own meals before you go. I think the early default for me was doing a lot of the, store-bought stuff. And I still like trying new varieties. I like my Mountain House. I think everybody probably starts with that stuff, but there's 2 or 3 that I really like that I'll go to with those. Peak Performance, I think, was another that I tried this year. Packet Gourmet. And there's a few others that I'm interested in trying, but I also started to dabble in making my own stuff. So I really liked, I did a video about it earlier in the year of buffalo chicken. So shredded buffalo chicken for wraps. That was really good. I got that recipe. I've seen it floating around a lot. Did my own little take on it, but I really liked the buffalo chicken wraps. That's a good. If it was easier to make for lunch, where you didn't have to at least heat it up, you could probably cold soak that. That might be one that I look at doing a cold soak. Can I do a buffalo chicken wrap? It heats when you heat it. It rehydrates so fast. So, you're putting a little bit of water, warming up the water, not to a boil or anything like that, with a little bit of the chicken in, and it's like 2 minutes, and you're ready to eat it, and it's got some warmth to it too. So that I may try and cold soak the buffalo chicken, and that same recipe, if you just switch out the buffalo sauce and instead of using the buffalo and I think it's a Hidden Valley Ranch. You can get the packets to add a little bit of that to the buffalo sauce. If you leave those out and just use barbecue, so I did that too. Sweet Baby Ray's, I think, is what I used, and it makes really good, just like shredded chicken. So you can do the same thing, just a buffalo and then a barbecue the next day, for lunches. So that's actually what I brought to Colorado, and I brought home from Colorado was my buffalo chicken and my barbecue chicken because we never stopped for lunch. So learn from my mistakes. But I need more recipes. I need more that I can do for that of, what would be good for cold soaking. Yeah, Tribe, I hear you about being used to being uncomfortable, so being comfortable in the outdoors. So I get that. And but again, that goes to kind of the mentality of it. My goal is to have a good time, see the sights that I want to see, get back safely, enjoy the whole ride. But I also enjoy sharpening my skills, working on that kind of mental facet of all of this. Can you be comfortable when you're uncomfortable? And I think a lot of us, that do the backpacking stuff, you might have friends and family like I do that look at me like I'm crazy, that say, why do you want to go to the bathroom in the woods? Why do you want to take a trip so deep that, if you got hurt or you got attacked by a bear, all of those kind of things come up, that you want to be stuck in the rain. Why would you want to go do a backpacking trip in a snowstorm? And for me, it was, that kind of sounds interesting. I think can I do it? Can I be comfortable when I'm uncomfortable? Because you're cold, you're not bringing everything so that you're sitting in camp, like car camping, I'll bring everything so that I'm completely comfortable. And part of it is my family doesn't necessarily have the same mentality that I do approaching all this stuff. So I want them to be comfortable. I want them to, have the fire pit and have the heater going and you name it. But going out into the backcountry, either solo or in a small group, it's a little different thing. Hey, we're going to get sleeted on and snowed on, and it's going to be 40 degrees and rainy. And can you be wet, but still safe, comfortable, and maybe not comfortable. Maybe, just can I get through this being uncomfortable, but not put myself in a dangerous situation and be able to make good decisions and get through that situation so that your skills are that much sharper. What did I do wrong? What could I have done better? Where are the pitfalls? Battling basic things like hypothermia, that kind of thing can catch you, and it catches pretty experienced people all the time. So how can you put yourself in those environments, be safe, but yet push yourself? That's a great part of some of these epic trips, is the feeling at the end of every night where you feel like, for me, we cranked a bunch of miles. We saw some things. The environment maybe was really challenging. When we did the 4-pass loop in Colorado, doing 4 passes at 12,500 feet, some days where you're pushing 10 miles and doing all that, it's physically challenging, and can you have that mentality to keep going? Can you deal with the rain? Can you deal with the snow? Can you still make good decisions? So I hear you. And, thank you for your service. We need more people like that. So Let's see, Tanya, you dehydrate leftovers for meals, beans, pasta salad. You get your cold soak ready after. I've heard that a lot, that a lot of people will do it because it might take a couple hours to cold soak to get ready for lunch. So it's kind of like I've heard different people that will stop halfway between breakfast and lunch on trail, get their lunch ready, throw it back in their pack, and then hike another hour or two, whatever it is, until their lunch break. So getting it ready, after breakfast. Hiking in the winter. Yeah, I'm the same way. My family thinks I'm crazy for going hiking, camping in the winter. I love it. My wife and kids don't do the winter trips with me though. No, we do. So we do with scouts. So I've got two teenage boys, and we do that. They do a camp out every month, all year round. So there is a camp out activity typically in December, in January, in February, and March. That's probably my favorite trip, is the winter camp out, as strange as it is, because you feel like there's a lot of kids there that maybe, especially the younger ones, haven't done that a lot and aren't used to it. So there's a lot of room for doing, educational, talking to them about how we do this, whether it's packing, layering, the importance of staying dry. I can't tell you how many winter campouts the boys go off into the woods and like somebody comes back like head to toe dripping wet because they fell in the creek, and it's like, okay, it's 28 degrees outside. This is like, we've got to deal with this now, so but you get them changed, send them into their tent, get everything changed. They come back out in dry clothes. They're ready to go. But we've had issues of people leaving their tent door open, so their stuff gets rained on, when it's 42 degrees outside and their sleeping bag's soaked, and they don't usually make that mistake twice, but you go through then the whole issue of how do you deal with the kids. So the ones that do it by the third year, the fourth year, man, you barely have to point them in the right direction. They know what they're doing, and they're typically helping the younger boys, through the whole process. So they've got the warmer clothes, all the tips and tricks that they've learned over the first 3 or 4 years. So it's neat to see them do that. But I get to go out, and I usually use that as a chance just for myself to try out gear. So, one night it was 7 degrees, I think it was what it got down to, sleeping in a hammock. So trying to figure out, okay, how far can I push the temperature rating? I think I had 20 degree stuff, and it got to 7. So I brought extra, but I had my 20 degree stuff. So I had things that I could layer on top, a second sleeping bag, a second underquilt, things that could get me warmer. But the night it got to 7, I had to get out and go into the truck that was parked over in the parking lot and grab some of my backup gear and bring it back to the hammock, because the stuff that I started with just wasn't warm enough. But I had so much more. And part of it, the reason I bring that is because a kid's getting his sleeping bag wet, or, issues like that. So I'm bringing backups just so I can pass that off to the kids, so they don't have to worry about, being cold or being wet or whatever. Their parents have entrusted me to make sure they get there and back in one piece. And I want them to have a good time. So I need them to learn that lesson, but I don't want them not coming back because it's been, so devastating. I want them to learn and then go have, hot dogs and sit by the fire and warm up, and everybody's happy. So I get a little bit of that fix, doing the scouting stuff. But yeah, I'd like January, February. I'm still going to be, as soon as I'm able to hike a little bit more, which I'm probably about a month away from being full go is what my expectation is. I'd love to squeeze in, a February, overnight somewhere here, in Indiana just to kind of shake the cobwebs out and get more experience with the gear. And, it's fun. The one thing that I've been watching lately on YouTube, I don't know if you guys watch a lot of stuff. I watch a lot of just ideas. It's one of these guys that does stealth camping, but in the most random spots. So it was like the one I watched today was, and he's up in Canada somewhere. I think he was in Edmonton. He car camped at the airport in like long-term parking. So he had to set it up so that security wouldn't know that he was there. It was total stealth camping. He had one where it was like an office park, like industrial park, and it was just like a little woodsy area that was in the middle of this, and he had to like sneak in during daylight and set up and camp there for the night. Nobody knew he was there, and I just, again, it kind of goes back to these challenges thing, just something different, something interesting or new. So stealth camping, I know a lot of people do that kind of thing in Hoosier National Forest, but you're typically allowed to do that. But they'll just go off trail and find a cool, spot that nobody knows exists, kind of thing. So, finding some locations like that, I think would be kind of neat too. Let's see, what other things do we have? Embrace the suffering. I love that quote. That's the mentality, having the mindset to do that stuff. Be comfortable being uncomfortable. The food, the challenges, the suffering, all of it. Well, we're a special breed, I think, if you like all that stuff. I think a lot of people look at us. That was one of the big reasons that I started looking into, like some of the Facebook groups. Was I kept doing all these things, and everybody, like 100%, would look at me and say, "Why would you do that? Like what makes you think that's a good idea? Like going out into the woods by yourself at the end of November, at the beginning of December. It's cold. Why would you do that? Even people that go camping, but they're like, the car campers that are going to the state parks and doing all that stuff, which I love. So I started looking into like Facebook groups, like, is there a group for us? Like, is there somewhere I could talk to other people that have these same thoughts and feelings? Because I can't be the only one who's like that. And once you start looking, it becomes apparently clear. There's a ton of people that will get into that stuff. Now, it may be a smaller subset of those groups that will do like the full on like winter storm or, even just winter camping. I think most of the people like in the Facebook group that I'm in, the Hoosier Hiker Backpackers group, they're all about, camping, backpacking, all that stuff. But there's probably a large percentage that would not consider doing, middle of the winter. If I were to guess, it'd probably be like 30% would be like totally down with, sure, you're going in January? Where are we meeting? Let's do it. So I don't know. I like doing that. I think it's fun. I probably prefer it more than doing it in like July and August and end of June where it's, 85 degrees in your tent at 1:00 in the morning, and you're just sweating like crazy. That doesn't sound super fun. I'd do that stuff anyway, but I'd much rather be in the fall or in the dead of winter. I'd much rather be cold than just too hot. I feel like with cold, I can at least do some things to be more comfortable. When it's hot, there's not a lot you can do, at least in my opinion, unless you're like sleeping next to a lake or a creek and you can take a dip before night or in the morning or something. All right. Well, I think I'm going to wrap this up. We're coming in on, 59 minutes. So I think that's plenty for tonight. Thanks guys for jumping in and pushing the conversation a little bit. I really appreciate it. And I love talking this stuff. I could do it forever, but I really appreciate it. So Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays to everybody out there. Be safe. I hope you're have a great holiday season. Hopefully you get to spend some time with some loved ones and really remember what's important. And then I hope you get some good gear stuff too for Christmas that you can share on our next podcast. So thanks much. We'll see you guys next time. Be well.